Welcome! My name is Juef and I'm happy to have you here. This video is about an unofficial version of the Dragon Warrior randomizer we all know and love. It is a fork of McGrew's and I've worked on it for the last year and a half or so. It is of course also open source. You can generate seeds with it through this link or this QR code right here. I started working on this just because I looked at the source code and I saw something and I thought, well, maybe I can try this, and then it worked. So I tried more stuff and then I lost control and then the world was destroyed, or almost. I never thought about balance at all. I just played around with things I thought would be fun or implemented some of the suggestions in the Discord or someone's chat on Twitch. Now that it has a bunch of features, I thought I'd let people play around with them. Hopefully you have a lot of fun. This is a screenshot of the randomizer itself. I've only built the standard web app, but it is definitely possible to build a desktop version for it also, or a command line version. Most of the new features are underlined here in Dragonlord green. There are some features which I will not be talking about today, but the flags are probably the most important ones and we will talk about them in great depth. The new one tab has probably the biggest features, the ones that took the most work and that changed the gameplay the most. They required a decent amount of assembly to become a reality. New 2 tab has tiny huge flags, that I'd like to call them. They are flags that required very little code, but they can make a huge difference in the gameplay or completion time. Most of them could actually be Game Genie codes. New 3 tab is just everything else, mostly cosmetic flag, other flags with lesser impact on the gameplay, and just miscellaneous ones. Also make sure you check the S period tab, which is actually the summary tab. It now shows the differences from the standard flag set. If we were to turn Stir Shuffle on, for instance, it would appear right here, just like Three's Companies is appearing here. Let's start with the new 1 tab. As you can see, pretty much everything is unchecked by default as per the standard flag set. We will go through every one of these flags and I'll talk about what they do, their interactions with other flags, maybe gotchas and tips to help you defeat the Dragonlord as quickly as possible. The first new flag is Vendor Shuffle. It's a big one. So you might want to buy some keys when you find a key and gold in the treasury or throne room when you start a game. So you go and talk to this guy, but surprise, he does not sell keys. He is selling weapons and armor, which is great. You can have a hand axe without even leaving the castle, but then you're not gonna have keys. So yeah, with this flag, all of the game's vendors are shuffled. They're not limited to their original town. None of them is going to be duplicated. Their prices are untouched, their inventories are untouched, and they look exactly as they do in the original game. There are specific cases we have to look at though, like this guy. Most of you probably recognize him as the Healmore key vendor. We did not want to change the logic behind the randomizer's code with this flag, so we have a few possibilities. If vendor shuffle is on and don't require magic key is off, then this guy right there is always going to be the Healmore key vendor. If Healmore is your logical key access, then you're still going to have your logical key access right there. However, should magic keys not be required by turning on, that is, the don't require magic keys flag, then that vendor is shuffled among the other vendors, so you might have a fairy water vendor right here. And if you do turn the don't require magic keys on, then there are 3 key vendors who do not exist in this seed. So there are 3 places, which are normally in Cantlin, Healmore, and Dantigel, which are going to be shuffled around as they would have been if they were selling things and they still existed. So you're gonna find 3 of the seeds shops deserted. That means a key vendor rolled there and he was removed. So it could have happened that the non-existent key vendor rolled in Healmore's original key vendor location, but the opposite is much likelier. Now there's something very bizarre we have to talk about, the mysterious appearing pond in Healmore. There is something very specific about the original Dragon Warrior game code I went into. You can look into all the details I shared on Discord if you want, but basically if you remove an NPC from Healmore, it's going to cause the very top left tile of the town to become solid. It does happen in McGrew's randomizer as well if you turn the don't require magic keys flag on and you go there. You're going to bonk the top left corner of Rimuldar. Until now, you had no reason to go there, but with Vendor Shuffle you could, so when the Don't Require Magic Keys flag is on, the top left corner of Rimuldar turns into a water tile, so you know you're going to bonk if you walk there and you're not gonna get all disoriented by it. So if you see a water tile there, you know there's not gonna be a vendor. Well, there might be a vendor, but at least one vendor in Rimuldar is gonna be missing. So what does this shuffle exactly? There's the item vendors, aka the guys that sell herbs and torches and such. There's the weapon and armor vendors, the key vendors as we just talked about, the fairy water vendors, of which there are two, the one in Breckenary and the one in Cantlin, but also the always loved and appreciated Radish vendor in Cantlin, who does not actually sell you things, but he still offers you some fresh and cheap radishes. Well, he's shuffled as well, so you can stumble upon him in any town that has a vendor now. Any town but Hawksness, of course. Innkeepers are not shuffled, that would be just mean, and I'm not that kind of guy. This flag can be tri-stated. Also, while it does not change the game logic, you might have earlier than intended key access. Say if Vanilla Map is on and a key vendor rolls into Breckenary's item shop. New flag number 2, another big one. This guy's Dragonlord, suggested by EMP Any Amount of Money a while ago. This is also one of my favorites. I have many favorites, as you'll probably realize soon enough. The Dragonlord has put on a disguise today and he's roaming out of guard as an NPC. So you might be shopping in Cantlin and surprise, the fairy water vendor says, "Welcome Z, I'm the Dragonlord, King of Kings," and then he's going to offer you the same thing he does usually. You're gonna have to say no if you want to fight him, and you're gonna have to say yes if you want to end the game. I suggest saying no, unless of course you have Three's Company on. So if you do find him, you might not be ready to fight him and you have to say no, die and come back there again when you're ready. Or just try running away, good luck with that. Don't be afraid if your game does this when fighting the Dragonlord. It's pretty much just like Treasure Guard, which has some visual glitches when you fight enemies in towns, but maybe a little more exaggerated this time. This is purely cosmetic, don't be afraid, your game is not gonna crash. It's gonna come back to normal if you end the fight in anyway. So who can the Dragonlord be exactly? The short answer is anyone. The long answer is, well, there's a few exceptions if you want all seeds to be beatable. The first exception is King Lorik. You do want to be able to save the game, check how much XP you need for a level, or bring Gwaelin back. The next exception is the Quartz guy in Cantlin. It is very possible that what's on the Overworld search spot is required, so you don't want him to be the Dragonlord. The Uncursed guy in Breckenary. We don't want to change the game's logic or have soft locks possible, so again, he cannot be the Dragonlord. And should the Rimuldar key vendor exist because Don't Require Magic Keys is off, then he cannot be the Dragonlord either, because we do want intact game logic. Also, if Open Charlock is off, it means you require the Staff of Rain and the Rainbow Drop, which means the Dragonlord can be this guy or this guy. If Open Charlock is on, then they can totally be the Dragonlord, and you can see how much the jerk held back before by just kicking you out of his cave. If you do want to know who the Dragonlord is, you can go and talk to everyone if you want. Some people like to do it, and sometimes they find him early, and if they do, it's a real advantage. But personally, I like to find him organically, just by talking to his NPCs I would have naturally talked to anyway. But if you don't like to do any of that, you can just go down Charlock and talk to the original Dragonlord guy. Now he's just an NPC giving you a hint, which consists of 2 pieces of information. First of all, the place where you can find him, which is going to be a town name or maybe a cave for these guys, for instance. Second, you'll learn about the sprite of the Dragonlord. Now, this is strictly the sprite and not the function of the Dragonlord. Suppose you're told the Dragonlord is rumored to be disguised as a shopkeeper. There are NPCs who are not selling things, who are not in shops, but are walking around dressed as shopkeepers. They could be the Dragonlord then. This flag can be tri-stated. Also, if you fight the Dragonlord and win, usually you're sent out of Charlock and you just have to cast Return or use a wing or walk all the way back home. but for consistency and to avoid potential soft locks, you're now teleported right outside of the place where the Dragonlord was. So if you fought the Dragonlord in Garenham, you're gonna come out of Garenham. There's a pro tip you can use to find out if this flag is active or not. In order to have ROM space for the hint the fake Dragonlord gives, I had to sacrifice an NPC's dialogue. So these two shopkeepers in the bottom left of Tantagel usually have a different dialogue, but if you do turn the disguised Dragonlord flag on, they're gonna share the same dialogue. So if you do see that dialogue on the right for both these NPCs, that means disguised Dragonlord is on. Keep in mind, however, that it is possible the Dragonlord rolls vanilla. So let's just say you'll get a very precise hint about his location if that happens. There's about a 1 in 120 chance that any given NPC is Dragonlord. You have to be careful about a few rare things also, like these two guards in the throne room. When you start the game, speak to Lorik and open the throne room chests, they have a different dialogue than when you come back in and talk to them again. These two guys may be the Dragonlord, but until you left the throne room and came back, they're not gonna want to fight you or anything, which is nice because that would be very bad. Also, our dear Princess Gwaelin cannot be the Dragonlord when she's yet to be rescued. But bring her back home and then she can be the Dragonlord. You're gonna go and talk to Lorik. I'm so thankful, blah blah blah. And then Gwaelin says, hey, let me have your torch and let me give my love to you. I'm so happy. And then you can talk to her and she'll offer you half the world and you can defeat her in front of her own father's eyes. So yeah, that can happen. It's not very likely though. Think of it as the Dragon Warrior randomizer version of Link to the Past randomizer's pedestal seeds, maybe? New flag, Radish Finish, inspired by Cyberdark's casual Royal Radish % tournament from last year. The goal of this game is to feed radishes to the princess. That's it. Nothing's particular about that one. The game ends and then you see the stats and everything. You don't have to fight the Dragonlord, so it's now a working win condition. It can be tri-stated and it can be used with vendor shuffle, which is awesome. If disguised Dragonlord is on, the Radish vendor cannot be the Dragonlord. One of the points of the Radish Finish flag is to have a seed that can be quick to play through. If we cannot finish with Radish, it would be very sad. Next one, Return Escapes. Usually in a battle, cast Return and the game says that you cannot cast this spell in a battle. Well, now you can. Step 1, Desire Escaping from Battle. Step 2, cast Return. Step 3, Profit. So yeah, those red dragons and armored knights in Charlock can now be escaped from in a much more reliable way. Of course, you have to plan ahead with a little bit more MP than usual. This is one flag that cannot be tri-stated, mostly because of laziness from my part. Apologies. Return uses the same MP as usual when used in battle this way, and the wings will not have this enhanced functionality, only the return spell. Next flag, Return to Town. Again, a 3-step scenario. First of all, you use an inn. Second, you cast Return. And finally, you profit again. So yeah, there are some games in the series in which you cast Return and it just sends you back to the last visited town. This is exactly that. However, you can't just step into a town to make use of this flag. You have to actually use the inn. Then the warp point is set. It works even after you die, so suppose you manage to do a hero walk and get all the way to the other end of the map, you find Breckenary, you stay at the end there, you leave and you immediately die. Well, that's no big deal, you just cast Return and you get back there immediately. There are some important considerations with this flag. First of all, saving will move the warp point back to Tantagel. Sometimes saving is great, but if you do plan to go back somewhere you were before, might as well try and not save if you can avoid it. Also, wings do share that new behavior, so if you use wings, it will also warp you to the last town you've used an inn or Tantagel if you last saved there. This flag cannot be tri-stated because reasons. You'll be walking home with the Ball of Light after defeating the Dragonlord, most likely. Usually you get to cast Return or use wings, but unless you've never visited an inn or did not save recently, you're going to walk to another town. So you might consider not staying at any inn by the end of the game. Also be careful, because when you save Gwaelin, the king asks about saving and you usually just mash and say yes, so that sets the warp point to Tentacle. Another flag. This is probably the one for which I'm the proudest. It's called Warp Whistle, and maybe it could have been called Recorder, like in Zelda 1. Use the Fairy Flute outside of battle, and usually nothing happens, but now something does happen. It warps you to a town. Which town? Well, maybe all of them. It cycles you through the towns you visited. And by visited, I mean, as for the previous flag, stayed at the inn. Suppose you start the game and find the flute in the treasury. Use the flute and it will send you outside. Outside Tentacle, of course. But then if you use the flute again, it's gonna always bring you back to Tentacle. Until, that is, you visit another town, maybe visit Garenham. You use the flute, that's going to bring you to Garenham. Use the flute again, it's going to bring you back to Tentacle. It's just going to cycle between the towns in which you use the inn. So eventually, if you visit all the towns, it's gonna cycle you through all of these. This, by the way, is the cycle order. It's not gonna change according to the order you use their inns. It doesn't matter, it's really a hard-coded list, if you will. This flag cannot be tri-stated, sorry. You can use it, however, to save a starting key if the flute is in the throne room. This flag can only work outside of battle, of course. Using the flute in a battle will have the same effect as usual. You have to actually use the inns. Again, don't be surprised if you go back to Tentacle if you just went inside a town without using the inn. So playing a flute song can be long sometimes. If you don't want to cycle through all of these towns, maybe not stay in every inn. If two towns are just next one to another, just skip one. The Warp Whistle's list of visited towns is initialized when starting a new game. If at some point you reset and start a new game, maybe with a different stat build or something, well, it's gonna completely erase that list of visited towns and you're gonna have a bad time and feel very sad. Next, Hurtmore Doors. It's a simple one, but a big one in a way that it can speed up many seeds. First of all, be next to a door. Second, cast Hurtmore. And third, profit. So yeah, just like a key, you don't have to face the door to use it, just be next to it. Casting Hurtmore blows the door away. You can not worry about your king count so much as you usually do. This flag cannot be tri-stated. I suggest you check your spell list for Hurtmore before opening the throne room door, because you can't possibly save the key if you have Hurtmore as a starting spell. Anyway, there's that guy in Tentacle that refills your MP nearby, so if you do start with Hurtmore, you can just go and refill it and open more doors. Another flag, Unbreakable Keys. Using a key outside of the throne room will not remove it from your inventory. You do start with a key every time if you do not have the don't require magic keys on, so that key from the throne room will be removed from your inventory. If you start with 2 keys, or if you find any other key anywhere, it can be yours forever. This flag can be tri-stated and the keys can be sold. If you do find more than 1 key, you're not gonna use the other keys, so you might as well sell them if you need some quick money. However, be careful not to sell all of them, because then you have no key and you have to find one again. Speaking of money, Ascetic King is a king that is very kind and lets you keep your gold when you die. Not much to say about this one. What's on the tin is what it does. It can be tri-stated. Maybe just don't over gold grind when you have this. If you do a full gold grind and die, you're gonna get to keep all of your money anyway, so you don't need more than a full gold grind. This next one, Levelup Refill, is probably the most used and liked flag in my fork, I would say. You get your HP and MP back to max completely free every time you get a level, instantly. So it makes for great exploration, great Charlock dives, grinding, and all around fun. This flag cannot be tri-stated. And be mindful of death warps. Sometimes you do want to death warp and then you find a great enemy, you kill it, you get a level, and then you get all of your HP back, so you cannot death warp as easily. Run mechanics. This one has some serious implications for the serious players. Usually in Dragon Warrior 1 and Dragon Warrior Randomizer, your agility and the enemies and a bunch of things decide if you can or not run away. There's now new ways to run away, such as the Dragon Warrior 2 run mechanics. In Dragon Warrior 2 you have exactly 2 out of 3 chance to run away at every single run attempt. Those who like to say agility is just a number, well, it's not even 1 here. It doesn't matter if you're level 1 with 8 agility or level 30 with 120 agility, encounter Red Dragon and you're a favorite to run away. There's also Dragon Warrior 4, which is the same as Dragon Warrior 3 I was told in terms of run mechanics. It's slightly more complex here. First of all, on your first attempt at running you have a 50% chance to actually run away successfully. Your second attempt, should you fail the first time, is also a 50% chance. Third attempt is going to be 75% success, and finally on the fourth attempt you're 100% guaranteed to run away from anything. That's great and all, but even better, how about a mix between 2 of those? This is called Safer DW1. This uses Dragon Warrior 1 run mechanics as you're likely used to, but your 4th run attempt is always going to be a guaranteed success. So if you do have some spare herbs or MP, this makes Charlock dies much safer, because if you encounter a Red Dragon or Armored Knight, well, just try to run away and counter run attempts. If you've done 3 run fails, then your 4th is guaranteed. You can try and run away with just 1 HP left. Without a sweat, you know you're gonna survive and not be losing 5 Healmores like you might if you have normal run mechanics. There is also random run mechanics. One random mechanic from these described one will be determined for the entire seed. You'll just never know which one it is. Now, suppose you are using Dragon Warrior 2 run mechanics. You're level 30, you're as fast as Usain Bolt, and you cannot run away from a slime because, well, now you have a 66% chance to run on your first attempt. So that sometimes can be a bit annoying, which makes Repel and Fairy Water very useful. These run mechanics are also valid for the Dragonlord, so you might be able to run away from the Dragonlord's second form quite easily if you want. This flag overrides both the easy Charlock and alternate run algorithm, by the way. Bonk Damage. This one is great if you like to suffer, or if you want to practice not bunking, or if you want to make your viewers laugh. Every time you run into a solid block, like a wall, or water tile, or an NPC, you take some damage and it can kill you. So yeah, this soldier right here in coal just killed the player. There are many options for this. You can have no bunk damage, which is what you're likely used to. You can have 1 HP bunk damage for a not too difficult setting, or 2 HP, or 20 HP, or insta-kill. Just make sure that controller works well, because you could be dying a lot instantly with this. Other options are random from 0 to 80, or current HP divided by 2. Or one of the above, which is basically Tristate, but for flags with more than just 2 options. This is a difficult but very fun flag, also great for death warps. You finally get that 5th item in the grave and you don't have outside, no worries, just bunk to death. Some clever players might want to try to bunk out of the throne room after getting the chest at the start of the game. I suggest you try it, but I can assure you it's not gonna do what you want. If you win the game and do not have return or wings, well, you can just bunk to death. This will actually bring you inside the throne room. You're gonna be able to talk to the king there, which is usually not possible, but it looks like the original game code planned for something like that. Suggestion: turn invisible hero or invisible NPCs with this, a chef's kiss. The random number from 0 to 80 option chooses a number when generating the seed, and the bunk damage will use that number for the entire seed. Current HP divided by 2 option rounds your HP down, by the way. So say you start with 10 HP, you bunk, you're down to 5, bunk again, you're down to 2, bunk again, you're down to 1, bunk again, and you die. Welcome to the new 2 tab. We have the Charlock Inn for starters. Why an inn in Charlock? Well, why not? You don't need a reason to want a Charlock Inn, you can just have it. It makes for easier Charlock dives. It costs as much as the Kentlin Inn. Use it and you'll temporarily get that sweet town music until the music changes, and then it's gonna be back like normal. It makes for a viable Charlock Spike tile grind in the event that the enemy there is better than the one in Hawksnest and the one guarding the princess. It can be Tristated. It will not mess with the warp points if you're using Return to Town or Warp Whistle. Be careful, however, because if this guy's Dragonlord is on, then the Innkeeper can totally be the actual Dragonlord. A set of 2 flags this time, random herb carry and random key carry. Usually you can carry up to 6 of each of these items, but now that max capacity is random. For herbs you can have up to 9, but also maybe you can't carry a single one. For keys it's a bit complicated. With standard flags and most other flag sets, it's just a random number from 2 to 9. In some seeds, Garen's Grave could be in the back of Taintigel or Garenham, and then you'd require 2 keys to reach the final 2 chests. In a similar fashion, Unbreakable Keys, Stair Shuffle, Short Charlock, and Random Princess Location will have an impact on key logic. I'll leave you the pleasure of thinking about these, just know we'll be talking about Random Princess Location in just a moment. These 2 flags cannot be Tristated, and with these you might want to open the throne room door before opening all of the 3 chests if you find a key in one of the first 2. The reason for that is left as an exercise for the listener, but you're welcome to ask me on Discord if you need help. Crit chance! You normally have a 1 in 32 chance to have an excellent move dealing the enemy an amount of damage that will vary between half your attack power and your full attack power. How about we change that probability to 0, or double, which is 1 in 16, or always 100%, just crit, literally. It could be random, and it could be agility over 256. Now agility is quite a lot more than just a number. By the end of the game you'll get an excellent move basically every 3rd attack. Also there's one of the above, again Tristate equivalent for flags with more than 2 options. The randomizer picks a number between 1 and 32, divides it by 32, and that's your crit rate for the entire seed if you use the random 0 to 32 option. So the crit rate will not vary with this flag, it will be the same for the entire seed. Metal Slames hate this flag, by the way. Agility builds might be something interesting to consider, especially with the upcoming 2 flags. And also nitpickers who look at the source code, yes, it is actually agility +1 over 256. How would you like to be able to crit the first form of the Dragonlord? How would you like to be able to crit the second form of the Dragonlord? Well, now you can! These 2 flags can be Tristated, and the crit rate for the both forms of the Dragonlord is going to be the same as for all other enemies. So if you have always as a crit rate, you could 100% crit against the Dragonlord if you want. Another pair of flags, both in prices and key prices, can now be changed. How so? In a couple of ways. They can stay the same, they can be shuffled, so a key in Kentlin could cost 53 gold, and staying at the inn in Brackenary could cost 100 gold. They could also all be random from 1 to 255 gold. They could be any of these 3, unknown until you actually play the seed. Careful with keys because sometimes you expect to be able to buy a key with 53 gold and suddenly you can't. Magic herbs, this is straightforward I think. Herbs give MP instead of HP, the same amount as well. This can be Tristated, make sure to consider this when you're going to calculus and debating if you can fight the Dragonlord or not. You can go with much lower strength or MP with this. The flute target can be changed. Usually using the flute in a battle will do nothing except for golems, which will be put to sleep. Well, now you can put every enemy to sleep but the second form of the Dragonlord if you want. Or even him too if you want. Or something you don't know until you've played the flute to these enemies. Again, goal level can be quite different if you can put the last boss to sleep easily. Random princess location. The princess, the spike tile near her, and the door can now be somewhere else. Let's look at all the possible locations. There's one on the first floor of Tablet Cave. You cannot see the door or spike tile here, but they are there, very close to her. There's one on the second floor of Tablet Cave also. Thank you by the way to Sam Canuck and Chadbert for these images by the way. Mountain Cave has 2 locations, one on each floor. The Grave has many possible locations, 2 on the first floor, 1 on the second floor, 4 on the 3rd floor, and finally 1 on the 4th floor. If you're a quick counter, you'll have noticed the overwhelming probability of 8 out of 13 that the princess is in the grave. This flag can be tri-stated. Add the Radish Finish for an even more fun Radish % seed. Check your key count because this flag might require you to have more keys than you'd expect. The Vanilla Swamp Cave location is still possible with a 1 out of 13 chance. As if Stair Shuffle wasn't difficult enough, well, now it can prevent you from getting to the princess because she might be in Charlock. So this is why 10 out of 10 Dragon Warriors recommend turning the Open Charlock flag on if you insist on having Stair Shuffle on also. Gold chest contents. Normally you can't get that much money from a single chest in this game, but now you can, with a few different options. In DWR, gold chests consist of 2 added values, a base one, which is fixed per seed, and a random one, which will likely be different every time you open a chest. Here's all the possible options now. Again, the random option will choose a base amount and it will be the same throughout the entire seed. Also take note of the 560 to 755 gold option, which is close to the original values, but will ensure you have index money if there's a gold chest in the throne room. Winter Team is the first of a few cosmetic flags in the new 3 tab. This is purely cosmetic, and as opposed to using the patch with the official randomizer, this will not change a seed's checksum, making it easier to handle race situations. Thanks to CyberDark86, Angel FM and friends for the patch. Disable red flashes, again purely cosmetic, but requested by some people, I suppose for accessibility, so there you go. This also does not change the checksum. And should you have damage bunks on, the bunking sound will use the original swamp damage sound to let you know you're taking damage when bunking. Randomized flute music. There's now more than just one melody when playing the fairy flute, more than 60 in fact. You can see by the numbers here that this will have a little impact on a seed, possibly. It can be tri-stated. The flute song is fixed per seed and tied to the seed so that all players using a certain seed will get the same song. The original song is in the song pool, and it's on by default because it's awesome. Thanks to Asmati Games for early work on this, I would not have done that or maybe even made this fork if it weren't for them. Discardable Flute, well, if you have a full inventory that is. Useful if you require many fairy waters or torches, and this can be tri-stated. Hints. This is a very small change for now. In the original game, NPCs give directions. As an example, a throne room guard when starting the game will tell you this, talking about Breckenary. Well, if you randomize the map, it's very unlikely that Breckenary is east of Tantagel. So, corrected. Now NPCs will have geographically accurate information for you. These are not so great because they just are one cardinal direction. Imagine Breckenary being 50 steps south of Tantagel and 49 steps east. Then the guard is gonna say Breckenary is south, which it is, but it's not gonna help you find it that much. There's a bunch of such dialogues in the game, and you can find the full list of them on GitHub, a link to come later. One NPC in Rimuldar gives the direction to the Rainbow Drop Cave. If the cave is in the basement of Tantagel or Garinham, he's gonna point to those. There will likely be more options for this flag eventually, but they're not quite ready. Summer Sale Tri-State Chance. If you do have Summer Sale on Tri-State, each item sold by weapon vendors has a 50% chance to be reduced in price. That percentage can now be changed to 12.5, 25 or 75. If you don't have Summer Sale on Tri-State, well, this flag does nothing. Vanilla Restoration is an attempt to revert all non-flag changes from Dragon Warrior to Dragon Warrior Randomizer. The post-credit stats screen are kept. This overrides a bunch of flags, but a lot of them work too, so you might want to try them out. Some things aren't quite as they are in the vanilla game, such as the gold chest contents and Erdrick's tablet. This cannot be tri-stated, and really you should only use this if you know what you're doing. Only Healmore, because who needs spells? Like this guy. Level 30 and no spell other than Healmore. You might have a red dragon with sleep and Dragonlord breath on a required spike tile. Well, too bad, just be lucky. This requires randomized spells to be on, otherwise you're just gonna have the vanilla spell list. There are 2 exceptions to this, which we'll talk about in a moment. This flag is not very fun, so I suggest you use it only if you require medically prescribed pain. This, however, can be tri-stated. 2 more flags, level 1 Radiant and level 1 Repel. These ensure that you know their respective spells right as you start the game, even if you have only Healmore on. They do, however, also require that you have randomized spells on. Since running from weak enemies is difficult with Dragon Warrior 2 and Dragon Warrior 4 run mechanics, you might consider using level 1 Repel with that flag. Or if you have random princess location or don't have permanent torch, maybe level 1 Radiant would be great. These 2 flags cannot be tri-stated. Unguarded Overworld Search Spot. When you have treasure guards on or tri-state, you might have a spike tile on the overworld guarding an item. Sometimes you can just be lucky and stumble upon it. You try to run away and you realize it was not a normal enemy. This is a great advantage in a race situation, but maybe it's a bit unfair. This flag ensures there's never a spike tile on the overworld search spot, and it cannot be tri-stated. And that's it! You can look at all of the source code for my fork through this link or QR code. There's also some information there, such as the list of NPC hints. This is once again a fork of McGrew's original Dragon Warrior randomizer. His version is the one that is the most balanced, the most used, and the most loved. Check it out at dwrandomizer.com. Very special thanks to McGrew for the randomizer itself and for making it open source. Absolutely nothing of what I've done would exist if it weren't for him. You rock. Testers, because I've broken many things when programming most of these flags. There's many who volunteered when I asked for testers, sometimes minutes or seconds after I asked. There's many and I don't want to forget any of them, so I'm not gonna list them, but you know who you are and I appreciate your help so very much. The community administrators, they're doing a terrific job and have been very helpful and trusting of me, which was not a given considering all of the crazy things I've done with this version of the randomizer. Many of them also playtested my fork of the randomizer, so thank you. Extra special thanks to Cyberdog86, who has helped me a lot with many things and has been very patient with me. Thanks to every player, commentator, tracker, streamer, viewer, etc. This community is awesome and I love it, and this thanks to everyone really. So join us on Discord if you haven't already. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day and I hope we can play some Dragon Warrior randomizer together soon.